Hello everyone, I'm Arun Bhardwaj and today we are going to discuss about developing web application. Right. So in our today's session, we are going to talk about what is a web application. We will also talk about Sagar raised his hand. Okay. Like if anybody have any questions, so then we will talk in between. Right. So we are talk about the agendas, today's agendas. So today we are going to talk about what is a web application. We will talk about three-tier and n-tier architecture of web application. We will also discuss about the difference between the web application and a website. And we will also see the roadmap of any web application development. We can also talk about the prerequisite of how to start any web application development. We will also discuss about how to develop a web application. We will also discuss about the deployment of any web application and their best practices. So let's start with and try to understand that what is a web application. So application development is a process of creating any computer programs which helps any individual or organization to increase their efficiency. And a web application is a software that's run on a web server and accessed through a web browser via URL. So in this particular image, you can see on the left hand side, there's a client. On the right hand side, there's a web service. So um, through browser, anyone can access your web application and the browsers which are easily available on the in the basically in the operating system. Edge, Chrome, Mozilla, and so on are the basic examples of web browsers. And through URL, you can access your application. And on the right hand side, there's a web server. So for a web application, we need a web server to deploy it, and your client means your application will talk to the web services for the business logic. We'll see. We'll talk about the whole structure, talk about the application, web application architecture in our next slide. So in general, web application is a software that runs on the web servers and you can easily access it through a web browser via URL. So any questions so far in this?
I guess we can move ahead.
Okay,
But do not send any questions in the chat box.
fair. So in our next slide, we will talk about the three-tier and n-tier web architecture. So for any web application, minimum we need a three-tier architecture. So in the three-tier architecture, we have three layers. One is your presentation layer. The second layer will be your logical layer, and the third layer will be your database layer, data tier. So in the presentation layer, this presentation layer is accessible layer to your users via browser, and it consists of user interface component that support to interact with the system, right? So it actually developed with using the three core technologies. One is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So while um, if I talk about the JavaScript is a code that determining what your application contains. The CSS part controls how it looks, and this JavaScript and its frameworks actually take care of how the behavior of your web page on the browser, right? So there are three main technologies which are mainly used. So to design this presentation layer, we can use any frameworks which are available. Like we do have Angular by Google, we have React by Facebook, we have EXTJS library, which is a purely a JavaScript framework to design our web pages, which is provided by Sencha. We also have the Bootstrap library by Twitter, so you can easily integrate this Bootstrap library with the Angular or React or with a normal basic HTML pages, and it's actually a web design front end framework basically, which allows you to create a nice and responsive web pages for your web application, right? So this is your presentation layer, which is responsible to interact with a user. Clear to everyone? Okay, I'll take it as a no. I'll take it as a yes. Sorry, no question. So, uh, okay. So next is your logical tier. Logic in logical tier uh, is also known as a business logic layer, application layer, domain logic layer. So where we are actually writing this whole business logic. So it's actually accepts the user request from the browser and it process to determining the route through which the data will be accessed. Right. So this is the logical tier. So where you have to write your business logic. So in web application, you can write, you can create or you can write this business logic with any one of the frameworks. There are a number of frameworks which are available. So for example, Spring Boot and Spring frameworks are for Java developers. Django frameworks for Python developers. That's based on the do not repeat yourself principle. There's an express.js library which is there for JavaScript developers, right? ASP.NET Core is available for .NET developers, right? So Ruby and Rails is available for Ruby developers. So it's all depends. So in general, in web application, you have to write. So in logical tier, you have to write a business logic, and this particular business logic you can write it any one of the uh, uh, technologies, and it's all depends on your skill set, right? And the third layer, which is a data tier, which is called a persistence layer. So persistence layer is also called the data access layer, the storage, where actually you are storing all your data. So this persistence layer is closely connected with your business layer. Why it is so closely connected? So that the logic knows which data to be talked to, and the data retrieval process is more optimized. I don't know. Okay, so this is a database tier. So as per your requirements, you can uh, choose your database, and like it your database could be your owned database hardware center, or it may be on cloud. It's all depends. On cloud means that you have to purchase this central management, data center management and their services, which can be easily through which you can easily access your database virtually, right? So there are a number of providers are available in the market like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, and they are actually selling the services as a infrastructure as a service. So if you want, you can consume it. If you want, you can you can choose any database center, your own, or the service providers are already there in the market through which you can easily choose. So, depending on your requirements, you can choose your database. There are the different type of database which are available in the market. There are the types of such as centralized database, distributed database is there, NoSQL database is there, operational database, relational database, NoSQL database, so, GraphQL database. There are the different type of database, and as per your requirement, as per your need, what you can do, you can choose your database. So for web application, we have the presentation layer, the logical tier, and the data layer. So on the presentation layer, actually responsible to interact with the user. So the presentation layer is responsible for the interaction. The logical tier is actually responsible where you have to write your business logic, and data tier where you actually persist your data. These are three tier. And there is entire architecture as well. So in the entire architecture, it is also a client server architecture only, in which the presentation layer, application processing, and the data management functions are actually physically separated in entire architecture. And there are several benefits of using entire architectures, like the scalability, ease of management, the flexibility, and the security, right? So in general, if you want to see the difference between what is the difference between 3 tier and n tier, in n tier actually the two tiers will be more added. The application layer and business logic layer will divide it into two parts, right? And you can add n number of tiers as per the demanding coming through the data is coming through the presentation layer. You can add n number of. So for example, if you want to store your uh, images and files and videos, so for that we have a DMS, database management servers. So that will be a different tier in your layer. If you want to write a business logic for application logics, you have a different set of application server. The, for the database, we do have a different set of servers. So you can add a number of tiers in your architectures. So mainly minimum, we need a 3 tier architectures for developing any web application, right? So let's move further. Now it's very important to understand what is the basic difference between the web application and versus a website, because website is also something which you can easily access through URL, and you need a browser to access it. But there is a there's a difference. So if I talk about the website, websites are nothing but they are just static web pages with full of information, and there you can only read the information, and those are just a piece of information and a collection of web pages, right? So with the help of normal basic HTML, you can create your website and you can deploy it on the server, right? But if you talk about the web application is actually more than the website. It actually where you can take information from the user. You can use the authorization and authentications for your user. Authorization and authentication means your valid user can access the correct information, right? So in web application, actually, there are the multiple modules, and each and every module is responsible for some requirements, right? So for if I talk about the web application, um, it contains multiple modules. And if I talk about the websites contains multiple web pages, right? So now web application contains your database, your business logic layers, and your presentation layers. The output of your web application is a WAR file. You have to deploy it on the servers. We'll see later how you can deploy your application, right? So this is a major difference where in website is just a static page. A web application is more than a website, which where from where you can uh, uh, take a user requirements, where you can take a user requirements, and you can show the user data on the website as well, right? Any questions so far in this on this particular site on a web application and a website? Or I can
Sir, excuse me, sir.
mhm. Yes,
Sir,
Vishal.
website is a kind of static one, like in which we can only see data.
Which you can only see the data. It's to represent only a static pages where you can see the piece of information. Uh, So through website, you for if you want to capture some user data, for that you need something on the backend which actually process your data and persist your data. If these things comes into the picture, it will consider as a web application, not a website.
All right, all right, sir.
Right? In general, something which is static, and in web applications are very dynamic web pages, and according to the information and the data, the that you can represent your data on the uh, web application. Fine.
Okay, sir.
Uh, we
Thank you,
have a
Sushil.
question.
Hmm.
Adarsh is asking for any example of web application and website.
Huh. So if I talk about the Wikipedia page, right, there you can see the piece of information. So those are very static pages, right? But if you consider the Facebook or any other application, there you have a proper authentication. If you talk about any HDFC, any banking applications like your HDFC bank application through which you can access your net banking, those are actually a web application where the proper authentications are required, and you can only see the accessible data to you, isn't it? Um, so you can consider the Wikipedia as a website and the net banking as an application, web application, which is responsible for your to solve your net banking purposes, right? So RTRC, RCR means from where you can book your tickets and all, make my trip and all. Those are web applications which stores all users' data and process all the stores users' data as per the requirements. Clear? So if I talk about an application, every application have a proper roadmap. Um, so for application, the very first phase is discovery phase, means your idea phase. Then according to your discovery, the problem statement, if you can find from on which you are actually trying to develop any web application, you have to do the planning. Then you have to make a design of your problem. As per your problem statement, you have to design. For designing in software engineering, we will use the UML, right? And on the basis of design, your development team develop your application, and your testing team tests that application, right? And maintenance is always there. You always and you have to maintain your application, and you keep on adding the new features to your application. So this is a basic roadmap of any web application or any application development, where this so this is a basic roadmap. Okay, so let's move further. Next, the prerequisite, how to start any web application development. So the very first thing which we need, an innovative idea, which helps an individual or organization to solve their complex problems. We need, as per your skill set, you have to choose any programming. So basics of programming must be needed, and we can choose the tools to develop any web application, isn't it? These are the very basic which we need. Then we can start developing it. And as per your skill set, we can choose your tools accordingly, right? Now let's talk about how to develop a web application. Uh, Means the basic life cycle. What are the main main concepts, main points which you have to take care? The very first one is that you have to find any genuine idea to develop any web application. So first of all, you have to analyze any problem statement. Out of the problem statement, you have to come up with an idea which says which so how it makes how you can make a difference in any of the problem statement. So you have to come up with a solution, and you have to come up with an idea. So this is a very first step which you have to think before starting any web application development. Then the market research is also very important. Means you have to do a complex analysis. You have to this is a very basic fundamental steps in a web application development, where this analysis of any problem statement is very important, and it's a very important element during a web application development. So conceptually, you have to be very clear about the functionality needs and the project scope, what exactly you want to make as a web application. So to make any successful product, you also have to be go with a very correct strategy. So no, so the market strategy. So you have to be very clear about the functionality as well as the requirements which you are going to talk about, which you are going to make. So what how you can see, like you can ask yourself, like how does your product solve the problem, who are the target audience, and why they need your product, how you can probably target their needs, user needs, right? So and everyone can use your application, isn't it? So that's a very fundamental step. Now once you were very clear about it, then you have to define the functionalities in a very proper manner. So there are a number of tools which are available in the market. So you can use the tools, like we are using the Jira tool to define the user stories and all the requirements, and to track all the requirements. So then you have to create a wireframes and the prototypes of your solution, right? You which will help, and then later you have to choose the correct technology to develop that particular application. Once it is developed, then you will host your application on the web and you can deploy your application, right? So this is a very basic says the steps for any application development, right? Once you're clear with the scope and the functionality, you can easily start with developing any application on any technologies, right? There are a number of frameworks which are available for the UI development, for the backend development. There are a number of databases which are available. So only as per your requirements, you have to choose, and you have to choose um, smartly, right? So maintenance is always there in the application, as we know, right? But I guess you have already, or you have probably heard about this agile methodology. We are using this agile methodologies or a sprint. Anyone heard about this terminology, agile and DevOps? No one?
Yes, sir, I have heard it. But sir, how we can use that in our like web creating a web application?
No, agile is a methodology basically. It will helps you to develop any web application. It will helps you to track any web application. So software development strategies you can easily define in a cycle. In a small stage, you can divide your requirements in a small stages with the help of this agile methodology. So it's a technique to which will helps you in the development of your application, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so thank you. So, and just thanks for this agile methodology process functionality, which helps you to deliver the application continuously. So normally we do have a sprint of for 2 weeks where we do have some tasks and we have to deliver those tasks within that time frame, right? So agile methodologies will help you a lot. Then later, the maintenance and the further development. This is a very important part of your application, and like it's a post development phase. When you deploy your application, you have to maintain your application, isn't it? So that's a post development phase. You should continue to monitor it, means your application which you have deployed. So for that, we do have a lot of monitoring tools which we are actually deployed to test and to check whether there are any error in your application or not. So those monitoring tools will act and send us a message instantly where that there's a problem here and there in the application, so we can easily fix and we can maintain our application nicely, right? So maintenance is also very important part. So web application development process is a compressive and a well-planned activities. So you have to be, and it will covers all the complete product life cycle, right? So this is a normal things that you have to take care, and that will helps you a lot in application development process, right? Now, this is once you once your development team develop your application, you need to deploy your application, and it's all depends. So initially we develop the application in a local. Once it is developed and developed mature enough to deploy, we have to deploy on the servers. So there are the plenty of hosting services that will let you upload let you upload your compiled files on their servers, and they will charge you accordingly. And like AWS EC2, right, or Google App Engine, you can deploy your application there and you can access it from anywhere. So in general, there are the number of tools which are available in the market, like Jenkins are there to build your application. So Jenkins will help you to build your application, means the output of your application. If I talk about any Java web application, the output will be your WAR file. So you have to deploy a WAR file on any server. So JBoss is an application server where you have to deploy a WAR file, and as per your URL, you can access it on through the web browser. This is a MySQL. So in general, we do have the testing environment and the production environment. So initially, our development teams will develop the application and deploy it on the test environments. Testing team will test the functionality, and then um, once it is approved, then we will simply deploy it on the production. Right, that's a deployment process. Okay. Now, as we are talk about the maintenance and enhancements of your application. So what you have to do is you have to be very, you have to use the version controls systems like Git, SVN, IBM ClearCase. There are a number of tools which are available. So you have to use your version tools so you can refer your code at any time. Then you can use any, you can use any tools like Jira tools, which helps you to write your user stories, the requirements, and to manage your bugs, right? And for coding, you have to use the basic principles of your coding. So, like the solid principles and design patterns are specifically for Java, but they're the for any technologies we all have a different kind of design patterns and the basic principles of writing codes. So that will helps you, and you will never end up with the technical debt in your application. So whenever you start writing your code, your application, you must have to use the correct patterns, the design patterns you have to follow for writing the code. And you have to go with the TDD approach, test-driven approach, where you have to keep on testing your application. And the refactoring is a very important part. So refactoring is you have to give some time to refactor and rethink whatever you have written. So if possible, refactor your code timely, so it will not then you will not end up with your technical debts, right? So your application, you can easily manage your application. Then later in future, if there is a requirement, you can add more features to your application, and you can make your application more useful for the users, isn't it? So this is what you have to. This is all about this application development. So this is all the theory part. I also have one application in a local application, one POC which I have did recently. So I can show you how this, which will help you to understand about this web application. So as I already explained, that this web application it contains multiple modules, and each and every module is responsible for some functionality. So collection of module is in a web application. So let's see a small demo of a web application. So, so what I did, I used on the presentation layer, I have used this Angular, and on the server side, I have used GraphQL API with the Spring Boot to create endpoints to write a business logic. And for the database, I do have a normal SQL Server database. So three-tier architectures, normal basic application. So here you can see this is an application. This is a web page, and I've developed this on the Angular. Right? It contains multiple modules like workflow, rule engine, dashboard, edocs. These are the modules in our application. Right. Uh, so this is VS Code. This is a tool which will help you to write the TypeScripts and the JavaScript and HTML code. So here you can see this is a main login page of my application, right? So and if you have idea about the Angular, how many have the hands-on Angular? No one? Okay, Angular is one of the frameworks which allows you to create the presentation layer. So as I explained, the presentation layer where which actually interact with a user. This is my browser Edge, and I'm using this URL localhost 4200 slash login slash workflow, which actually helps me to log into my module. So for example, if I want to log into workflow module, it straight away take me to the workflow module. If I log out and if I choose the rule engine module, if I log in, it will straight away take me to the rule engine module. Right. So that's how it works. So I had in my application, I do have multiple modules, 4 modules, right? So here, if you click, you can see those. You can create any dynamic pages. I'm using the Bootstrap library for and the Material UI library for designing the pages. So if you go to the angular.io website, it's a well explained. Uh, you can find all the documents and you can easily go through it and you can start your application. Right. This is all about. This is Angular page, and here you can see all the information is nicely easily available for you, and you can easily create any application. So step by step, everything, how to do a setup, how to create application, what all Angular tools, the best practices, developer guide, everything is available, right? All what all components are there. And along with this Angular, you can use this Material UI. If I say, if, if you do Google Material Angular, material.angular.io. So on this particular website, this will allow you to create. It gives you the components basically, like the button sheets, the buttons. If you want to create this kind of buttons, the code is. You can see the code. You can see the examples here straight away. Sorry, right here you can see the HTML part, the TSS part, the CSS part, and in the example section you can see the examples, how your buttons will look like, how your checkbox will look like, right? If you want to use the date pickers, you can straight away use this code and you can integrate with your application and you can use the date pickers. If you're going with a basic HTML, for that you have the number of libraries which you have to um, integrate with your applications. You have to download those libraries and you have to use them in your application development, right? So in this particular example, I have used this Angular with Angular material just for the demo purpose. So here, if you can see, this is a navigation bar. This is my header. This here, normally we do have footer in at the bottom. This is my navigation bar, and through which I can move to any one of the modules. So for example, if I want to move to the rule module, and then rule module, I have a drop down where I have to choose any, and I just want to see what all rules are there in the database, and I want to fetch only ID, name, and description label from the database. So when I click on this, my UI, my presentation layer interact with my business logic layer, and my business logic layer is here. This is a GraphQL. With my GraphQL is running on the different port, if you can see, localhost 8030 GraphQL. And here I am doing the query to find all rules, and I just want ID and name. So if I want,
Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
yes, please.
Sir, we can make the whole application with the help of Angular only.
Yes. So if you, if it is all depends. So Angular is a framework which helps you to develop the presentation layer. On the backend side, you have to choose your application. As I explained you, different applications for this backend development. It's all depend on your skill set. If you know Express.js, you can easily write all your business logic in your Express.js, and you can easily connect with your database in your database through Express.js, and you can integrate your Express.js with your Angular app, and you will have the whole bunch in one go. And so Angular is a framework, UI framework for developing the presentation layer mainly. But you for the backend, you need something. So if you're a Java developer, you can go with the Spring Boot. I'm using the Spring Boot because I'm a Java developer. So I've used the GraphQL API, which is initially developed by Facebook, and through which you can query to the backend to the database as per your need. So for example, here I want to fetch ID name and XML. If I hit, it will give me the ID name and XML. If I don't want the XMLs for now for some requirements, I just need a label. So it will give me the data in the JSON format. I can easily um, pass this JSON and render it on the UI. So that what I'm doing it over here. So
Sir,
here,
can we use Python also?
yes, for the backend. See, as I explained you the architecture part. So for a web application, there are the three main components. One is presentation layer.
Yes.
The second one is the business layer or the logic layer. So if you are comfortable with the Python, you can use the Python as well to develop your Django is a framework.
Yes.
You can use it for writing the business logic for Python.
Okay.
Python.
Sir, the whole thing will be done in some software like Visual Studio Code or something.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't get you. User code.
Like sir, we there's a Visual Studio Code, na?
So VS Code is nothing, but it's a IDE, integration development environment.
Yes, yes, yes.
So you can use this one as for there are a number of plugins which you can use. You can use, if you know the Docker, you can use those containers to run those images if you want. Right?
Okay, okay.
Docker is
Sir,
also
I'm not sir aware about that Dockers and Kubernetes.
Docker and Kubernetes. So initially, like for example, if you want JDK 17 for some development, right?
Okay.
If you want some different libraries, Node libraries, but you don't have access to deploy it on your application on your operating system, for example. So what you can do is you can download the image and you can run within this Docker, right? So it will gives you the virtual environment to run
So,
the
so,
libraries and APIs, so you can easily
okay.
use it.
So in that case, the Visual Studio Code or integrated development, these things will not be required.
No, definitely you need a ID. So you need something to write a code, no? So for
Yes, yes,
example, Eclipse is there to writing the JavaScript code, right?
yes, yes.
And so IntelliJ ID, VS Code, Eclipse, NetBeans, you can use any as per requirement. You can
Atom.
also Atom is also there. You can develop if you comfortable. You can write your code on HTML, Notepad also, isn't it?
Yeah,
Edit
yes.
plus and Notepad plus plus. So anything which where you are comfortable with. ID is actually those. This will actually allows you to which they come up with the plugins and they can make your life ease, isn't it?
Okay,
So
okay.
you can use as per your
And
requirement, as per your skill
and what
sets.
is just last question, sir? And what is the
Mhm.
purpose of APIs? APIs in this?
APIs in this. So this is Angular, right? This is a presentation layer where
Yes.
actually what I'm doing it, I'm taking the user input from here and I'm just rendering whatever I'm getting as a response. So for that, what I'm doing is I'm actually hitting the library, the API. So if I open this network tab for you, it means the developer tool. If you press F12 on the browser, on the network tab, you can see all the movements. So if I click on search, so here you can see this endpoint is it. This is a API, right? Localhost 8030. This is my backend. Okay. And in API, the main part is your payload. What is your payload? That means what you are request for. So as a query, I'm requesting for all rules, ID, name, description, and label, which is there. No, I'm creating a payload dynamically and send it to this particular endpoint. And as a preview, as a response, I'm getting it as a JSON format. So what I'm doing is I'm just simply pass this JSON and render it as a table, as a grid. So this is my endpoint. This is my API, right?
Okay. Okay, sir.
So this is my backend. And so for example, I don't want label over here. So I can simply remove this label right? And I can also remove this description also. I just
All
need
right.
ID and name. So if I hit to the endpoint, so here you can see as a payload, I'm only passing ID and name as a request, and as a response also I'm getting ID and name. And
Yes.
as on dynamically, I'm rendering it on the UI,
Yes. Yes.
right? So this is ID name and label. If I remove the label and if I hit, I can see ID name and description. If I want to fetch another information from the select box, I can change the entity and I can fetch the data. I don't have any rule group as of now. So, okay, if I talk about the versions, I can get a versions.
Sir, React is also like same like Angular, or is it different?
React is again a framework, and it's by Facebook. So if you're comfortable with the React library, those have a different syntaxes and different set of syntaxes to do the programming, but the basic concept will always remain same, right?
Yes.
So the basic concept that means you need something, a web page. So you can develop your web page using your Angular, you can React, you can also use EXTJS library. That's a Sencha library, which also allows you to create a dynamic and very uh, rich UI. So if you search for EXTJS examples, Sencha. So Sencha is one of the library. Have also worked on this. Um, so this is a library. So here also,
Okay. Sir, for learning that React, we need to learn Angular first, or
no, no, no,
simply
no, 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 no. React is completely different.
okay.
Angular is a completely different. Both Angular is provided by Facebook, right? Facebook, sorry, Google, and
Okay.
this React one is by Facebook.
Okay.
Arun, I can see two more questions from Kishan
Hmm.
and Pravesh.
Hmm. Yes, please,
So,
Prakita.
can you, Pravesh and Kishan, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am,
one by one, please? Yes, Pravesh.
HTML. जी बोलिए Sir,
Pravesh, you have a question?
what is
जी मैं
XHTML?
मैम ये मैं ये पूछ रहा था इसमें बैकएंड में पीएचपी और सी शार्प के अलावा कोई और सी लैंग्वेज भी यूज की जाती है क्या?
Okay, for database you are talking about,
या सर
Pravesh.
यस सर
So database is a completely a different thing. If you heard about Oracle, SQL Server, H2 database, MS Access, Excel
जी
file is also considered as a database also. Right. If you want, you can write. And if you do, so database is a completely a different, you can say, an application which is actually store your data in a tabular format. If you talk about the relational database management system, RDBMS, right? If you talk about NoSQL databases, they will store in a different formats. So it all depends which type of database. So there are a number of databases which are available, and it's all depends. So Pravesh, which technology you know? Which, like if I talk about, if you're if you can tell me which skill set do you have?
सर HTML CSS and
Uh,
Java and I read also Python and PHP.
okay, so those are different skill sets. So if I talk about if you say HTML and JavaScript, so for that you can easily develop your presentation layer for your application. If I talk about the Java, you can use any framework libraries like Spring frameworks, Struts frameworks, which are no more, but still there. You can use those frameworks to develop your business logic.
जी जी
Like as you know, the PHP, you can use PHP for your writing your business logic, right? And
Yes.
if you want to persist your data, if you want to store your data, so if somebody enter his name, address, and phone number, if you want to store it in your database, so for that we are using we are normally called as CRUD operations. So where the C stands for create, R stands for read, U stands for update, and D stands for delete. So for that matter, like if you want to store any information, that means you are going to create. If you want to update any information, you have to use the update query, right? And if you want to delete from the database, you can also delete it from the database. So these are the very basic four things we commonly called as CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete. So you can store user information as per your need, and you can manipulate or you can maintain as per your business needs. Right, Pravesh? So you can write your, if you know the PHP, you can write your logic in PHP. If you know the Python, you can also use a Python to write your business logic. But to store that information, processed information, you need a database which you can easily use. For testing purposes, we normally use this H2 database, and there are a number of free databases which are available and on the cloud, as well as you can store it on your local. So as per your need, you can use it.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yes. Yes,
Yes, sir.
Krishna.
How
Yes.
many SQL statements are used to define them?
How many?
How many SQL use and define them?
SQL, maybe
SQL.
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 Okay, how many SQL to define what?
Define them. You define a statement are used. Web.
And the web applications, as
Yes.
I just explained, there are the few CRUD operations, right? So if you want to create, then in that case, you have to use your insert statements. If you want to read, then you have to use the select statements. If you want to update, you have to use the update statements. And accordingly, if you want to delete, you have to use the delete statements. Those are very basic SQL statements which you have to use in your database. So it's all depend. If you are using Oracle, MS SQL, SQL Server H2, some syntaxes may be differ, but yes, with the help of SQL query, you can fetch and you can maintain your data. Now, if you talk about the basic, if you want to write SQLs, you can also write the SQLs in your database. As in, like if you talk about the frameworks, if you want to use the frameworks like Spring JPA, there is no need to write any SQL. But there's a library which gives you the functions which straight away helps you to do these operations. So there's no need to write SQL as well. You can straight away use, if you know the basic relation between your two entities, you can straight away go and fetch the data from the database using entities.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay, please.
Sir, I have a small doubt, sir.
Please go ahead.
Sir, like you said now, like HTML, CSS. Sir, like I am going to make some web application.
Okay.
So can I start from directly React, like it is a business presentation layer. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, these are also used for presentation layer. I have just I have the basic knowledge of all these things, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So can I directly move on to the React or Angular for
No,
making that?
okay. So as I so these are the frameworks, right? So
Yes.
anyway, you have to go and you have to study about the basic structure of any Angular application or React application. But yes, this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are the basic core libraries which are used. So if I talk about this HTML only, so if you can see this logout, this is a main login page, right? So
Yes.
in Angular, if you go and see this login component, these are the component. So I have a multiple components in this particular example. In like if I talk about this only specific login component, it has HTML, it has a TypeScript TS where I can write a basic logic and the CSS. So HTML is what which actually represent on the UI. So this is
Various
various
things like
things.
buttons, of all the components will be displayed by HTML.
So this here you can see this workflow, rule engine, dashboard, and eDocs. I have developed it as a button. So if I want to change the label, for example, so for eDocs, I want to say reporting app. Okay, anything. So if I
Yeah.
say this, it straight away go and change to reporting app,
Yes.
right? So these are buttons. So this is my HTML. Whatever I can see, or you or your user can see as a for the interaction, right? On the HTML, you can create a forms, right? These are in Angular. We can create a normal forms also. We can create a reactive forms also. This is a reactive forms.
So,
So here, if you can see, username and password is mandatory. Yes, please.
sorry, do we have to use like media queries for changing the layout? Like if you view in the mobile, it will be displayed as different.
Hmm.
So do we have to use media queries, or it is automatically that it adjusts according
So
to screen?
nothing is automatically, and your application will not be responsive. You have to develop it accordingly. So if you
Okay.
want a responsive application, that you want to open your application for mobiles as well as your tabs as well as your laptops. So for that, what you have to use it, you can use the Bootstrap library. So if you go and explore this Bootstrap library allows you to create a responsive applications UI, right? And they have inbuilt CSS, so you can straight away go and use this. This is a most popular HTML, CSS, JavaScript library in the world. Okay, great.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
sir. I have used that. I have used that. But sir, sometimes the problem came like the website, web page not become responsive in this case also.
so for that, you have to write CSS
Media.
accordingly.
Okay.
Yes, you can. You have to use the media query. So what your web page will when you load your web page, it will indicate and it will change accordingly. So if you want to change it horizontally and vertically accordingly as per your the screen size, you can use media query. So media query is a part of your CSS,
Okay. All right.
right? There you can write your code.
Okay, so I can see Pravesh has a question again.
Hmm. Yes,
Yes,
Pravesh.
Pravesh.
सर मैं एक चीज पूछना चाहता हूँ।
जी।
जैसे VS कोड है, मैं VS कोड यूज कर रहा हूँ काफी दिनों से, काफी लगभग 2 years हो गया। बट
हम्म।
अभी मैंने अपने लैपटॉप बाय किया था लगभग महीना पहले, तो उसमें मैंने VS कोड इंस्टॉल किया तो उसका जो लाइव सर्वर वो चल नहीं रहा, उसका क्या प्रॉब्लम हो सकता है सर?
And VS Code is free for use.
जी जी, आई नो।
So क्या इशू आ रहा है आपके VS Code में?
VS
सॉरी।
कोड में जो लाइव सर्वर होता है, जैसे कि आपके यहाँ पर नीचे
ओके,
जो इसका,
ये मेरा लाइव सर्वर। हम्म।
जी जी, ये इसका लाइव सर्वर, मेरे में लाइव सर्वर नहीं आ रहा सर, क्या प्रॉब्लम आ सकती है सर?
You just have to download the plugin, live server plugin. So you have to download the extensions. So I have actually
सर
installed this. So this is not by default. You have to explicitly go and add this plugin to your VS Code.
सर वो मैंने इंस्टॉल कर रखा है सर।
VS Code आपने इंस्टॉल किया होगा, लाइव कोड आपको, लाइव सर्वर आपको
इंस्टॉल
इंस्टॉल करना पड़ेगा।
सर, इंस्टॉल किया हुआ है, वो भी लाइव सर्वर भी इंस्टॉल किया हुआ है सर।
तो मे बी ये कुछ टेक्निकल रिक्वायरमेंट की वजह से है, सिस्टम रिक्वायरमेंट की वजह से।
ओके मैम।
नहीं, system,
तो
that's a very normal plugin which it's easily available. So VS Code में इस particular section में जाएगा extension में, and यहाँ पर आप live server search करिएगा, and you can install any different live server. So I have already installed this live server, this one, right? तो एक बार check कर लीजिएगा, please go and check in the extension block whether it is installed or not. इसको एक बार uninstall करके reinstall कर लेना, so that will help.
सर
Okay.
okay. Do we have any more questions, guys?
मैम, एक्चुअली मैम मैं ये कहना चाह रहा हूँ, जैसे हमने बैकएंड के लिए HTML मतलब बैकएंड के लिए PHP C# और पाइथन के अलावा कोई और सी लैंग्वेज भी सीखना चाहते, मतलब सीखना जरूरी है, कहने का मतलब ये है। जैसे कि हमने PHP में चल रहा है और C# भी अभी किया नहीं है, बट करूँगा, तो उसके लिए C# भी जरूरी है, अगर मतलब जरूरी है क्या?
पर परवेश C# .NET बैकग्राउंड से आता है,
जी जी
PHP डिफरेंट बैकग्राउंड से आता है, जावा completely different बैकग्राउंड से आता है. So first of all you have to stick with one technology, है ना, either Java or a .NET or a PHP or a Python. Choose
जी जी
any or a Ruby, whatever you want like. पर एक पे अड़े रहो, एक पे फोकस करो एंड वर्क ऑन इट. सब कुछ सीख लेने से सब कुछ नहीं बना पाओगे.
जी जी जी
That's not possible,
जी जी
right?
यस
So
सर।
so like in our industries we do have the proper UI developers for the presentation layers, we do have the backend developers, we do have the DBAs for the people who will actually responsible for the database only, right? For DevOps, for the deployment process, we do have a proper DevOps teams, right? So you can choose any of anyone as per your interest, Pravesh, right? If you are more interested in the UI side, so we do focus on the frameworks which are available on UI frameworks, right?
ओके सर।
Thank you.
So Arun, we have a question here from
Okay.
Prashit.
Yes. Okay.
He says that I'm currently working as Oracle DB
Uh-huh.
administrator, but willing to shift to web development, and I know Python too. So knowing DB well, would that help me in the app development?
Definitely, yes. DB is actually a core. So all your data is going to store in your DB only, no? So you, if you are working as an Oracle developer, means as a DBA, you are actually know the basic, the structure, the relations between the two entities. You know how your data is going to store in your database. If somebody wants to show the data, you can create functions and functions, no, to fetch the data from the multiple tables. So it will help you for sure, definitely. If you know the HTML and all, that's a completely a different set of skills, different skills altogether. But yes, that is DB is also very important to understand in web application development. It's play a very vital role.
So also, Prashit, we have our counselors here. So if you have any query related to, shifting your domain or working in some other company, our counselors are here to help you. So we'll just shortly break out into breakout rooms and you can get your query solved. Any more questions, guys?
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
What is TypeScript? What is
Sorry, what
TypeScript?
is?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes. What is TypeScript? Is it different from JavaScript?
No, it is. Okay. So in Angular, you can write all your code in TypeScript, right? And at the end, the output of the TypeScript is a JavaScript only.
Okay.
Okay. So what TypeScript gives you basically, it's an open source, right? And it's maintained by Microsoft, the TypeScript, and it's a strict. It's a strict basically. If like in JavaScript, you can write any code. For example, without declaration any variable, you can assign it to any value to any variable without declaration. But in TypeScript won't allow you to do that. So TypeScript actually it's very strict, and it helps you to write a proper JavaScript, right? So at the end, the output of the TypeScript is a JavaScript only.
Okay. All right, sir.
Right.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
Harish.
Hari.
Sir, actually, I'm from a mechanical background actually. So I'm testing courses. Can I move to the developing field?
It's all depend. If you are eager to learn the frameworks, no one will stop you, Harish.
Yeah.
But you have to decide that whether you want to go with database sites or the presentation layer side or the backend side, right? Please, so first decide and then work it accordingly. So there is no restriction as such that the people from the mechanical backgrounds will not do the coding. They can also do coding. It's just writing um, the business logic as per the requirements, no? So
Okay,
you,
sir.
yes, you can.
So, opportunities for testing and development.
Hmm. For
Okay.
testing and development, what?
There is an equal opportunity, or for testing there is an less opportunities. What kind of situation is there?
See, testing is also a very important part of your web application. No, whatever it is developed by the developers, it's always tested by testers. No, so for quality, so testing is a completely different set of skill sets, and it's an equivalent important in a web application development. So if we need developers, we also need testers too, right? So now these days we are going with automation testings where you
Yeah.
can write automation scripts to test all the data, not even the manual one, but yes.
Yes, sir.
So there's a lot of scopes to writing the code and do the automation and that part.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
We have a question from Naksin.
Hmm.
Do we need to master maths for web application?
No, you just need
A lot
to.
of people ask these questions, I guess.
No. See, you need to, as per your experience, you will come to know the best way to use the APIs and libraries. So all the libraries are available on the internet. It's very well documented. If you go and explore the angular.io, there's no need to go anywhere. You just go, if you read all the documentations which are provided on the internet, you can easily do it yourself, I can say. There's no need for any specific thing. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Any more questions?
So how do we enter competitive coding?
Sorry, Siddhant.
He's asking about how to enter in competitive coding.
Like, so I
Competitive.
want, yes, sir. Like I
See,
want
there are
to.
a number of there are a number of websites are there. Hacker Earth is there. Hackathon
Also,
is
but just
there.
I have started learning to code. Like I have started a DSA and developing concepts.
Hmm.
I'm learning to code right now.
Fair is okay. But in which framework?
So Java.
Okay. So in Java, we do have a different framework. So what was your actual exact question, Siddhant? Can you please repeat? So you are initially start learning the coding part. So what exactly you're looking for?
So I have like so they have TCS. I have code vitas and all tests. So I want to crack that. Like my aim is to be a good coder.
So if you want to be a good coder, there, as I said, there see there are the different websites are available. There are online um, uh, there are online tools from where you can go and write your code and test. There are the number of Hacker Earth is there if you heard about Hackathon, Hacker Earth. So you can go and register there, and there you can do practices, and they will give you uh, the problem statement as per your skill sets, and accordingly you can increase your level and you can explore more. So there are the frameworks. If I can suggest you can go and register on Hacker or Hackathon. So go and participate there, and so there are, or you can do more Google on it. Means there are a number of frameworks. Means there are a number of providers in the market which will help you.
Okay, thank you.
Siddhant.